Welcome back to Kris versus Everybody. I'm your host, Kris, and this is the podcast where I talk about anything and everything unedited, uncensored, and unapologetic. No filters, no fluff, just me being real. This episode is brought to you by the Crisscross Studios YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, hit that follow button to stay up to date with every new episode as it drops. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. Now let's get into it. All right. This is a new year, 2026. I'm just going to let it out the bag. 2026 is going to be a year of new beginnings for a lot of people, particularly the Democratic Party. Not saying that everything is going to work out for itself because of the thing that I'm about to talk about today, but I'm talking about the Democrats. I'm not saying that I'm affiliated with the Democratic Party, but the people of America are fed up with Mr. Donald Trump. Even if you voted for him, deep down inside, you're like, man, maybe I shouldn't have voted for this man. And if you're going to the grave with, I love my pick, Donald Trump's the best choice for America, then I don't know what to tell you. If you listen to my podcast, you already know how I feel about people who do vote for Donald Trump and Donald Trump himself. And today is not going to be any different because I'm going to talk about why Donald Trump just doesn't give a flying fuck. 2026 is going to be that year where if America doesn't stand up against this man, the American society as we know it, or as we had known it since 1963, is going to be gone. It's going to be a whole new America. So we're going to talk about why Donald Trump, superseding his role as commander-in-chief of the U.S. Army and military, went down to Venezuela, attacked their country while capturing the president of Venezuela, Mr. Nicolas Maduro. We need to talk honestly about what just happened in Venezuela and why it should concern everyone who cares about international law, national sovereignty, and the future of global norms. Like, I thought this year was going to be a breath of fresh air. New year, new us. Nope, same old with Donald Trump. Just wants to just do everything his way and not follow any protocols. In early January, the United States carried out a large-scale military strike against Venezuela that culminated in the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife. U.S. authorities have transported him to the New York criminal system, the New York jail, to face criminal charges. Supporters of this action call it enforcing the rule of law. They say Maduro is a criminal linked to narcotics, trafficking, and corruption, and deserves to be brought to justice. But the manner in which this is all done, with U.S. troops crossing into another sovereign country, using force, and abducting a sitting president, raises alarms that go far beyond the fate of one man. And it should worry everybody who cares about the rules that govern relations among nations. Today, I want to explain why this unprecedented act is very dangerous, very illegal, and very harmful for long-term peace and stability in Venezuela, our hemisphere, and ultimately the world. Let's begin with the most basic principle in international relations, which is state sovereignty. This is the idea that every nation has the right to govern itself without outside interference. It is enshrined in the U.S. nations, the United Nations Charter. The United Nations Charter obligates member states to refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. The United States is part of the United Nations. Venezuela is also in the United Nations. So in this case, the United States used military force inside the territory of Venezuela without Venezuela's consent and without UN authorization. So it's hard to understate how significant that is. There's no recognized international mandate, no Security Council resolution, nothing. That's just unilateral action. International legal experts say this is not a lawful arrest or an enforcement action. It is an illegal use of force. One expert explained that drug trafficking charges against a foreign leader to not justify that they don't justify. You're going to do U.S. charges on a foreign leader with zero evidence. It's crazy. It's crazy. There was no armed attack against the United States from Venezuela that would trigger a right of self-defense under the UN Charter. So, Donald Trump, how are you going to get yourself out of this one? So we have a situation where one global power asserts the right to cross borders, seize a foreign leader, and fly him to another continent to face charges under its domestic law. That doesn't look good, Mr. Trump. That sets an extremely dangerous precedent. Well, people are saying, "Oh, that's never done before. The president is doing what the president does. He's powerful. We need to do what we're going to do what he says, and what he's doing is great for the country." No, it's not great for the country, Mr. MAGA. It's not good for the country. Have you ever thought of why it hasn't been done before? Why this is setting precedent? Is a very extremely dangerous precedent, because now any country now can go and take people from other countries. You're saying that we're making the United States safe by arresting and capturing a president of another country for alleged stuff that they did. Now, we're going to be on the lookout for any country now. Now, the United States is even worse off than what it was before doing this. Now we got to be looking left, right, behind our back, under our butts. We got to look everywhere now. If this becomes normal, then no country is safe from extraterritorial legal actions dressed up as law enforcement. Today is Venezuela. Tomorrow, it could be any nation that has diplomatic or economic disagreements with a foreign neighbor. Just because one country has the world's most powerful military doesn't make its actions legitimate, Mr. Trump, MAGA, GOP, America. At the United Nations, a heated debate unfolded. Countries like Brazil, China, Russia condemned the United States' action as a violation of Venezuela's territorial integrity and a threat to international stability. Leaders spoke of fear that this act could intensify instability, not only in Venezuela, but across the region. We're talking about Colombia, Panama, Brazil, Costa Rica, the Caribbean nations. South Africa saw protests against the intervention. Demonstrators chanted slogans like "Hands off Venezuela," and they accused the United Nations of imperialism. South African leaders publicly criticized Washington for violating international norms. This isn't just rhetoric. Countries large and small are increasingly questioning whether the United States has a special license to decide unilaterally who should govern another state and how to enforce that. That's not respect, that's resentment. And it frays the very alliances and norms global diplomacy depends on. Proponents in Washington, they argue that this was law enforcement, that Maduro is a criminal and therefore should be subject to prosecution. But let's just unpack that. The head of state is typically afforded diplomatic immunity under international law, except in very narrow circumstances, such as before the International Criminal Court. The idea that Washington should designate Maduro as a criminal and then send in the military forces to seize him on his own soil is unprecedented outside of a full-scale war. Like, there was no Venezuelan legal process inviting US authorities to take him in. There was no joint task force, including Interpol, or any multinational justice effort. This was just the United States acting alone. And yes, supporters will point to the charges, which is narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, weapons violations. But bringing someone to justice is one thing. Abducting a foreign head of state without consent or multinational authorization is another. Maduro himself protested loudly in a New York courtroom, calling himself the constitutional president of Venezuela and decrying his capture as an act of kidnapping. It is an act of kidnapping. We took you, and you're going to face United States charges for something you allegedly did. With no proof. No proof, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be clear, this was not clean. This was not a clean, bloodless event. And they made sure when they did the press conference that they clearly said that Americans were not killed or harmed in the abduction of Maduro and his wife. However, when you see the footage on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Fox, ABC, CBS, BBC, all across the board, you see American planes and helicopters shooting down on Venezuelan soil. So people died. Reports estimate that around 75 people were killed during this raid, including Venezuelan and Cuban security forces and civilians. Hundreds more were reportedly injured. Every life lost, whether it was a soldier or civilian, is a human tragedy. But these deaths are not mere statistics. They are a direct consequence of using military force to achieve political ends. Supporters of the raid argue that Maduro's regime was oppressive, corrupt, and responsible for widespread suffering of Venezuela. Many of those criticisms are valid. There are genuine humanitarian crises in the country that require attention, and the Venezuelan people deserve better governance, better living conditions, and respect for human rights. But responding with military force from outside does not solve these problems. It risks turning internal strife into foreign occupation. It risks fueling anti-American sentiment. It risks making everyday Venezuelans feel like they're pawns in a geopolitical game. If justice truly is the goal, then that path must involve the Venezuelan people themselves, not decisions made thousands of miles away by foreign governments and militaries. Sounds like another Republican president that tried to do that in the Middle East. But anyway, This perhaps is the most troubling part. If the United States can storm a country, capture its leader, and take him home to face trial without consent, then what stops another power from doing the same to US leaders or leaders of another allied nation? China, Russia, or other powers might not try this tomorrow, but the principle has now been broken. And once the principle of sovereignty is weakened, global stability is weakened. We used to live in a world governed by rules. That force is the exception, not the norm. That sovereignty matters. That disputes are solved through diplomacy, sanctions, international courts, and treaties. Today, with Maduro's capture, one of those rules has been broke. It wasn't even bent. The rule was broken. The concern isn't just what happened, it's what it means for what happens next. Let's be clear. Let's be very, very clear. Criticizing the way this was done does not mean I'm defending Maduro. It does not mean I'm endorsing Maduro's government. It does not mean ignoring human rights and I am accepting the corruption that's happening in Venezuela. It does mean that I'm recognizing that the way we act sets the rules for everyone, including future leaders, future conflicts, and future generations. Capturing a foreign leader through military force without consent or international mandate does not make the world safer. It makes the world more unpredictable. You say you're making it safe for the American people. You just made it worse because now anybody can attack us now, since we feel the need to attack everybody else. We did the same thing in Iraq. And look what the fuck happened. 20 years of nonstop fighting and looking above our shoulders. It does not uphold the rule of law. It rewrites it. It doesn't protect sovereignty. It just erodes sovereignty. It doesn't promote peace. It normalizes force. And that, dear listeners, is why this matters far beyond Venezuela. We got to stop thinking that force and fear is normal in America. It shouldn't be. This is expected for like Stalin's Russia or Hitler's Germany or Jong-un's North Korea, not the United States. So please, do us a favor this election day and put people in office that'll call this man's bullshit out. And it might mean going against your values. But if going against your values gets someone who does not care about you and this country out of office, then that's what you got to do. I'm calling y'all out who said, I'm not voting Democratic. And now everybody's food stamps are gone or eroded or taken away a little bit. Education has gone down. Prices have gone up. Jobs are scarce. And now our safety is just at an all-time low because someone wants to go to another country and abduct someone's president. And now we have to worry about what's going to happen to us. So please, do your job this November. Do your job. And that has been another edition of Kris versus Everybody. See you guys next time with another episode.